Hello and welcome back to Boss Your Business podcast. And if you're just joining us, make sure to catch up on the previous episode where Matthew and I discussed dominant and submissive roles, repeating patterns, and dealing with childhood traumas. Today, we are picking up where we left off and diving deep into more of the dominant and submissive stereotypes and issues involving those roles, how it applies into your business, how Matthew has helped me get more clear on my childhood traumas and resolving those. So if you haven't watched the first episode yet, make sure you start there and then come right back as we keep on bringing the heat.
It's a great thing from the Academy, and you have the book here, Unbound, which is phenomenal. And I'm not going to pronounce the name right. It's Kasia Urbaniak, I believe. I'm going to mispronounce it. Is great.
At least I'm not the only one that always mispronounces names.
Yeah, but you have an accent. You
it.
can blame that.
I'd make it sound cute.
See, that's the difference. She does a great job of explaining dominance and submission based on where are you coming from. A dominant role will be, I need this. I need you to do X. This is why I need it. A submissive would be, why are you thinking this is not comfortable, or what else do you need? What more information do you want? And it's a great way to get what you want, whether you're coming from a leadership role, dominant, a submissive role, follower, technically. But in this case, you can get what you want simply by asking questions, and we come all the way back around to good communication, good listening skills, negotiation, understand what's going on, and asking directly for what you want, and doing it without pressure, and doing it without force, and doing it without somebody ending up resenting you or coming up with consent regret. Relationship goes smoothly pretty much only about a third of the time.
You are putting two people with two different perceptions, more than two different perceptions, but let's keep it simple. Two different energies into one room, into one relationship, into one situation. And like, I even fight with myself. How is that not going to happen in a relationship? And no matter if that's a business or a personal relationship, something is going to happen.
So something is going to happen. It's interesting. I have used, in my business life, I can't tell you the number of times I have used transactional analysis and knowing somebody's personality adaptations and where they're coming from across a negotiation table against, I won't say against them, but I'm able to read somebody and realize that, oh, you're coming from this adaptation most probably. I'm not going to communicate and ask my question like this. I'm going to ask my question like that. And I have used it to negotiate with somebody I'm still asking the questions. I'm just doing it in a manner of which I know where you're coming from now. As you said, I see your little micro movements and microaggressions, and I've seen your energy change before you realize it's changed. It's in a business world, it's fantastic.
As nice as that is as a coach, it can be a pain in the ass just saying you can't hide anything. That's actually what you want on a coach.
Do you want to hide something from your
No,
coach?
I don't. Fine.
She's like, fine,
calls me
no.
too.
Damn it.
God damn it. But what I see in that, and I learned
Similar with a different viewpoint, with a different language behind it, but that's what I learned with NLP too. So I'm a neurolinguistic programming master practitioner, and I know there is quite a few conversations out there of, is it manipulating or is it not manipulating? I look at NLP in a way where I learned how people process information and how I can figure that out based on their language. One of
Is
the
it
running
manipulation or is it a negotiation technique?
Now, the interesting thing is how I look at it, because I get where people are coming from that say NLP is a manipulation technique. It can be. To me, it comes back to the person that's implementing it.
What's your intent?
It is language.
Mm-hmm. Language can be loving and language can be hurtful. It matters who is using it how. NLP is the same way. Any education is the same way. It can be used for good and it can be used for bad. I use it to be able to get past certain walls. Meaning, if I'm coming in as a consultant or a coach, being in a group setting, you know you're going to have multiple different people with multiple different perceptions, with multiple different goals, and with multiple different core values. Now, my job is to bring them together to get to the main goal, why I was brought on. If that is implementing ClickUp, if that is team buy-in to a new sales funnel, whatever it is, now suddenly you are trying to bring together how many people all at once for a common goal. They're not all speaking the same language. That person is making decisions based on feelings. That's more logical. That's a creative one. That one doesn't give a crap. He just follows along. All of those are possible. Now, with what I have learned in my NLP master training,
you have the tools to read
I have the tools to translate between those and speak to their goal and literally just get through the language barrier, because they're literally using different language when they are saying the same thing, which is why, like, you can hear something 3 times and it doesn't hit till somebody says it, and suddenly...
In such a way. Yeah. There are so many different parts of life that are a lesson that you need to learn, and you're not going to learn it, A, until you're ready, and B, until it's taught to you in a way that works for you. You can look at somebody 7 different ways and teach them how to do a physical feat. And it's only when that 8th person comes up and says, think of it like this. And all of a sudden, oh my God, yeah, that was the easiest thing in the world. Why didn't I learn that? Because you needed to get there. You needed to take those steps. Language is one of the words that I was taught early on is the language we use in our head just creates a biochemical reaction, and it dumps into our body. And what we feel in our body goes back up into the brain. So whether we're talking about psychological work up here, or we're talking about somatic methodologies of the body, of the work that goes on, what are you feeling in your gut? What are you feeling in your heart? Where's that energy? Is, as you talked about, you need to take a walk sometimes. You need to get that energy out. You need the somatic release. Somewhere where the dom work comes into play or the sub work comes into play. You need that energy release. Language is fun just because a word that I've told this to you is try. Try is just also a terrible word.
We don't try. You either way do or you don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's the one thing Yoda was 100% correct at. Do or do not, there is no try.
That is one thing that I think that is the one single phrase that stuck with me from my NLP coach, Stephanie. Somewhere in there, I think it was practitioner training. Doesn't matter. A pen doesn't try to write. It writes or it doesn't.
Or it doesn't.
And literally every single time I hear the word try is when that pops in my head. And I'm like, that
every single time I said it. And I know I've said it a half a dozen times in this podcast already. And every single time I have kicked myself going, you shouldn't say that. Another fun word is the can'ts and the won't. I can't do that. Or is it you won't? Because all of a sudden, can't become something out of your control. Every time I confront Bob at work, I can't do it without crying. I can't do it without just yelling at him. You can't or you won't. And all of a sudden, won't becomes responsibility, and you internalize it. And just changing that one word, getting can't out of your vocabulary.
Now I'm going to add to that.
Okay.
Because you also put a presupposition in there. You said, always. When did you make that decision?
When did you make a decision that it's always going to be that way?
Oh,
every time,
I do that
always,
too, often.
Can'ts and won'ts comes into play.
The limitations we set ourselves on, where it's like, gotta love how this all comes together. I've been reading 10x is easier than 2x. That has been my latest read, and I never understood the idea of 10x, where it's like you want me to set a goal 10x higher than what I actually think is possible. Gives me heart palpitations as like I'm having a full-on meltdown. And if I don't believe, how am I going to make this happen? You are just giving me that.
To a million.
I just want to get to 200.
That's my goal.
Exactly. Now, the phrasing and the explanation in the book of how 10x is easier than 2x made complete sense to me, and I'm all for it now. Going for the 10x takes your focus literally on something you think is not possible, which then means you are putting everything away that doesn't get you there. You might not reach the 10x within the first year, but you eliminated all of the bullshit that you just put time into. And we do the same thing in language, how we minimize ourselves of saying, I can't do this. I don't have this knowledge. I don't have that knowledge. Who decided that that's what you need to accomplish this?
I heard a can't there. Exactly right. I can't do this. Then you won't. With the old analogy, the whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. That comes into play so much. And we're not taught any of this. You talked about sex and sexuality in the United States. We are an incredibly repressed culture. There's no question. But at the same time, I have an Ivy League MBA. We were never taught that your energy matters, that your thought process matters. We were just taught of how to bull through things, get ahead, force your way through, get to yes, whatever it takes. If you fail, that's on you. If you succeed, that's on maybe you. But nowhere was it taught your attitude matters. We don't have any of that focus. I know now there's medical schools around the country that force, one of the requirements is humanities classes and energy classes for the medical students, so that they understand that there is more to the patient than just the plumbing and the wiring and the lumber.
And I love that you brought up energy. Made me think of a conversation I had lately.
We'll get to make me's in a minute. I heard that too.
I had a conversation, I would love your take on it, where I believe that burnout is a focus issue. And let me explain. You have people, same person, that works the same amount, the same times, does the exact same things, and burns themselves out. And a year later, same hours, same effort, and they do not burn out.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have a focus the second time around that is rooted in their core belief, that is something that speaks really closely to them, that gives them the energy to do the work, to do all the things they want to do without burning out.
I think they're probably also doing it in a healthier way of, I just don't think it's healthy for somebody to focus on one thing 100% all the time to the detriment of every other part of your life. That is not healthy. Whether it's getting the MBA, getting the medical MD degree, whether it's getting your business up to 1 million from 10,000, you need to figure out healthy ways to do it. So let's talk about the opposite side of a good girl. The uberly independent woman who will take no assistance and no help from anybody else. I'm not describing anybody, and I'm looking the way you're looking around right now.
Been there, done that.
Been there, done that.
I'm supposed to be doing this by myself. I'm not supposed to be asking for help.
Exactly right. And so the problem is, you have the good girl, which is, I have no desires of my own. I'm not allowed to have any desires of my own. I have to do what everybody else wants, and I have to abide by I have to give up me to be loved by you. On the other side, you have the person who is so independent, they won't ask for help even when they need it. The independent woman who's got a spouse, and they're always complaining about the fact that the spouse doesn't help them at all, doesn't do anything
Did you ever ask for it?
at all. It's not even that they don't ask for it. Even if that spouse wanted to at one point in time, they have learned they can't, I use the word, they can't do it right. They can't do it right. They're always doing it wrong. They've gotten to the point in time, or they've asked 100 times and you've always said, no, I don't need any help. So they've stopped asking. It's that independent woman with a streak that they won't let anybody help them. None of us can get through this on our own. Just think of us as a species. We are born and it takes years to become to the point in time where we're independent. Even 10,000 years ago, even 1,000,000 years ago, it would have taken us so long
You're not
to
even independent once you're finally 25. Mom is still doing the laundry.
Well, yeah, that's something else entirely. That failure to launch is something else. Or you have the tortoise, which, I'm sorry, the eggs get laid in the sand. Mom disappears. She's gone. The eggs come out. Dude's like,
Figure it out.
Water's over that way. I got to go that way. And they are on their own and independent from the get-go. We are not born that way. We are not raised that way. It takes a village. All of that stuff comes into play. You can't be independent and do 100% on your own. I guarantee you that person who burned themselves out and a year later are doing the exact same amount of work over the exact same 40 or 50 or 70 hours a week, they're doing other things in their lives that are healthier for them, whether it's working out, whether it's yoga, whether they're getting spanked by a dom once a week to get that energy out and get that focus back. They're doing something for them.
Yeah, I'll give you that one.
They're doing something different.
All of that energy comes into play, and it is an interesting combination. If you'd asked me before I met Kimmy Inch if I would be doing this as a career, oh my God, no, because the good boy would never have allowed it. And to speak about this publicly and to say, this is what I'm a professionally trained dom. I have all these sorts of things. The world's an interesting place.
The funny thing is that is the reason why I actually connected with him. That piece right there. Having from... we connected because of my personal growth. Because it was this, I am tired of guys not knowing what the hell they actually are doing. And I wanted to know more about that piece of, wait a second, wait, trained dom what?
There's a training, there's a certification for that? You can, really? There's a conference for that too, by the way.
Because I was always in tune with that energy exchange.
Right. You were also raised in a society where it was a little bit okay to be in that energy modality. I think one of the problems in the U.S. is we don't have a good understanding what kink is. I'm not Christian Grey. The books are horrible. Mm-hmm. They're vile, they're bad, they're wrong. I found them unpalatable. I read them because I felt that I probably should. And
because you knew it was going to come up. And
I have
to admit, never read the book, watched the movie. And even though on a personal level, as a quote entertainment, I did like 50 Shades of Grey. However,
never seen it.
However, and that's your point right there. I realized how Christian Grey was portrayed, even in the movies too, of it. His kink is a compensation method for his stuff. I saw the physiology aspect behind the character they painted, and I'm like, guys, you fucked that one up.
Yeah, they fucked that one up. I'll say it. They fucked that one up. Hollywood does that. And so let's dive into kink for a bit here. Hollywood portrays kink terribly. They do it as it's something wrong. It's compensation for a trauma. It is something that is wrong, evil, dangerous, damaging, unhealthy. All of the research, and there is legitimate research on this from the Kinsey Institute, again, from sex therapists, from all the psychologists who go through this. It's been removed from the DSM, is that most people don't get into kinky things from a trauma-based background. You learn it as an adult, and it's intriguing, and the energy is exciting, and that's kind of fun, and you get into it that way. Or you learned it as a kid in a very natural way, whether that is as a 16 or 18-year-old kid, you saw Basic Instinct, And there's a very powerful, passionate sex scene in that movie. Whether it's Gal Gadot or Linda Carter as Wonder Woman with the golden lasso tying somebody up, whether it was Julie Newmar as Batgirl from the Adam West reruns, or it was Seven of Nine from the Star Trek, right? A little tight outfit like that, kind of like Aaron Gray from Buck Rogers. Whether you watched the 300 with a bunch of really hot, well-built guys running around in leather harnesses.
What is it about leather harnesses?
I know, right?
I don't know what that is.
But you picked up, that's the thing. I don't know what it's about, but there's something about it that just works for you. Works for a lot of people, that's why but there's something about it. That's how most people get into kink. What is a good definition of kink? For a lot of people, it's something you're embarrassed about asking for. And it could be as simple as that. I know people that found a French kiss kinky. Wait, you touch tongues? And they found that kinky, let alone going to the spanking, the bondage, the leather play, the masks, the zipper, any of those kinds of things. So kink is just a part of sex, of whatever you find erotic, exciting, that to you is out of the norm a little bit. Not enough to go, not for me. The one thing you never do is you don't yuck somebody's yum. You don't want to get spanked, somebody else does. That's okay. That's perfectly natural. Where it comes into play is if it's unhealthy. Christian Grey and the way he did things was unhealthy for himself and others. The last thing I do in my work is, I just said it, I don't yuck somebody's yum. I'm not here to have somebody come to me, a couple who will come to me and say, I need him to stop desiring X. I'm not going to do that. I don't need to heal anybody away from kink. What I might do is use your kinks to heal you from something that's not working for you. That's what a piece of work might look like, is I'm going to use the kinks to get you the power dynamic you want. I need to release my desire to be submissive. I want to be submissive. I want to get some power in my life. I feel incredibly powerless. Okay, let's talk about that and see what power looks like for you. And maybe it is holding somebody down. Maybe it is putting a bandana or a silk tie around somebody's wrists. Maybe it is Shibari and being gorgeous. That is a focus. That is a piece of work right there that is fascinating. Talk about attunement, building a container for somebody is the immense focus of Shibari in the rope bunny. The person being tied gets to let everything else go. Close their eyes.
You don't even have another choice.
And no,
it's like a meditation.
You have a choice. You can be thinking about 100 different things, but you want to get into it as a meditative space and get into that subspace and release everything. From the rigger's perspective, whether you're not just spending somebody or just tying somebody, you want your entire focus to be on your partner. To everything else goes, you're not thinking about what happened earlier that morning. You're not thinking about the email you need to send. You're not thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow. You are so intensely focused. You can hear the passion in my voice. You are so intensely focused on your partner. What's right in front of you right now. Because there's so much involved in it. There's such a safety component to it. Where's the rope? Is it over a nerve bundle? Is it over blood vessels? Am I constricting? Is there pain? Am I doing this in a safe way? But it's also, am I getting my partner what they want? What am I feeling? What are they sensing? And that type of energy. So imagine you're in a boardroom and I'm having a conversation with a business room, a boardroom. I'm having a conversation with an associate, whether it is somebody who works for me that I need better work from, whether it is a boss that I'm explaining why we shouldn't do X, we need to do Y. But getting them to the point in time where my conversation is so intimately and intensely focused on you and what you need that nothing outside of this room exists, you're going to have a better rapport with your employee, with your manager, with your subordinate, with your boss.
You mean not paying attention to anybody doesn't
When you're
help
doing
my
the
focus?
conversation right, the last thing you're going to want to do is pick up the phone unless you are so uncomfortable having that level of intimacy with someone.
Which can happen too.
Which can happen a lot. In that point in time, I'll pull back a little bit and you'll adjust that level. But whether it's kink for fun, whether it's kink for healing, whether it's a conversation with your kids, whether it's a conversation with your boss or your subordinate, don't you want it to be that powerfully connected? I have never met them. I have heard stories from people who have talked with Bill Clinton. Love him or hate him. People always said the same thing about him. When you were in a conversation with Bill Clinton, you are the only two people who exist in the world. He is so intensely focused on you. I don't know whether he's thinking about 100 different other things or not, but his outward attention is so intensely focused. I've talked to people who love him and hate him, but everybody says the same thing. There is such an incredible focus. And he's not doing it to be manipulative. He is doing it to be personable and charming, and it's just supposed to be so powerful. Isn't that what you want a lot of your conversations to be when you're dealing with somebody?
You want to feel seen. You want to feel heard.
You want to feel seen. You want to feel taken care of. You want to feel listened to. And even as a subordinate, even as a submissive,
Yeah, but
when
that's
you
where the
are
power
seen
is.
and heard, that's where the power is. I'll ask you the question. Between a submissive and a dominant, who is the power?
Yeah, I know. The submissive actually has the power. I can pull the plug at any given time.
You can pull the plug at any different time. Let's go back to consent. No should not be turned into a yes. A yes can be turned into a no at any time. You have set the limits. You have set the boundaries. You have negotiated what I'm allowed to say, what I'm allowed to do, what the activities are going to be, how long they're going to be last, what are the safe words. All of that has come from the subordinate, has come from the submissive. If the dom does one thing to cross that line, you're done. I can't tell you the number of friends who know what I do and they come up to me and I'm talking to this guy online or I've met this guy. 99 times out of 100 when they're talking about this guy who portrays himself as a dom. And a couple of times I've actually had a couple of men who come up and they're talking about a woman who portrays herself as a dominatrix. 99 times out of 100, my response is,
Run.
the best case scenario is there a guy who's got one pink flogger and he considers himself a dom and he doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
In the Western area, they're just freaking aggressive and have no idea what dom actually means.
They're misogynistic. They're woman hatred. They're looking to beat up on somebody, whether it's a woman or a subordinate male, a sub-male. They are looking to beat up on someone for their own pleasures, for their own desires. If they say to you, you have too many boundaries. If they say to you, I know what you want. Any of it, it's a red flag. It's more than that. It's a dozen red flags. It's a red light. It's a siren going off, and you need to run. Don't even engage. Block them, run, be done. That happens more often than not. My friends come to me as a trained dom, knowing I have the expertise to train others and to teach others and to make sure that my friends are in safe, healthy situations. Because this can be dangerous. Any of this can be dangerous.
It can, and interestingly enough, it's straight up for me, at least in my head, translates into business too. Because the same red flags I see in those conversations happen on the business level too.
Happen on the business level all the time.
Where it's like, you are not a
100%, Evie. I can get that done by the end of the month. Yeah, sure, you'll be fine. And they won't, and they can't. And you can just tell from the conversation. It'll be done by the end of the month. You'll be lucky to get it in 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll probably stop talking to you, and you'll never get it at that point in time. It happens all the time in business, and it doesn't have to be the used car salesman in a plaid sports jacket and loud tie.
No, they usually don't show up
No.
that in your face.
No.
No.
But you need to be able to read your red flags. You need to be able to trust them. Again, but it's coming from that healthier point. Let's go all the way back around again. How many women do you know, men do it too, but typically women, you're dating the same guy over and over again. You're
I felt called out.
I'm not
Done
calling
that.
you out. I don't
Done
do
that.
that.
No, I called myself out.
You called yourself out.
I called myself out.
I don't break confidentiality. You called yourself out on that.
But that's one of the reasons why I started my
It's going to a
NLP
hardware
training.
store looking for milk, and you're going to a dozen different hardware stores trying to buy a quart of milk every single time. You need to shop somewhere different. But people have those patterns they refuse to break. And you're going into the hardware store expecting a different result.
How I started this whole journey was leaving my toxic relationship. I had a great relationship before that, and I was like, why am I back in this pattern? I know what this can be. Why did I go back into a toxic relationship that made me smaller just because he thought he needed me on his level? That was pretty much what was happening. And coming out of that, moving to San Diego, full reset, I decided I am not dating for 2 years. I wasn't even on dating app for 2 years, where I'm like, I needed to figure out, who the hell am I? What am I without anybody else telling me what to do? And why am I back into an old pattern? I divorced my first husband. I left the boyfriend that did that crap to me. Why did I go back to this pattern? And I think the first step is realizing that pattern is there.
Oh, absolutely.
If you are dating the same guy over and over and over again, I'm sorry, the guys are not the problem. You are the one common denominator. Oh my God, what an amazing episode and recording with Matthew. You can be sure he will be back on the podcast, and I might have a couple of ideas for some collaborations in the future. We will see where all of that goes. If you are ready to eliminate your toxic relationships in your personal and your business life, go check Matthew out on his website. As always, the links are all in the description. Steer Institute, I've been working with him and the Institute for quite a few months at this point. It is time to own our power, to step into our amazingness, and let the people that act out of fear and simply want to put their limiting beliefs and their pain on us, let them be, focus on us, focus on stepping into our power, and really go after our desires, no matter if that's personal life, business life, or anything else. I hope I will see you in the next episode as we talk about how to boss our business and boss our mindset. I'll see you there.